Laos is a sparsely populated country of less than 3 million people that was never a threat to the United States. Yet from 1964 to 1973, the United States military dropped more than 2 million tons of bombs on Laos during 580,000 bombing missions, equal to a plane load of bombs every 8 minutes, 24 hours a day for 9 years, making Laos the most heavily bombed country per capita in history. The United States dropped more bombs on Laos than it dropped on Germany and Japan during World War II. These bombings were part of a secret war in Laos to support the Royal Lao government and to interdict supplies to southern Vietnam along the Ho Chi Minh Trail. The bombings destroyed many villages, killed 50,000 civilians, and displaced hundreds of thousands. During this massive destruction, the American government insisted that it was not bombing Laos.
There are no American combat forces in Laos. We have been providing logistical support and some training for the neutralist government in order to avoid Laos falling under communist domination. As far as American manpower in Laos is concerned, there are none there at the present time on a combat basis. We do have aerial reconnaissance. We do have perhaps some other activities. I won't discuss those other activities at this time.
The United States also denied sending combat forces into Laos. Thousands of Americans there served as contractors for the CIA, where they supported hundreds of CIA aircraft known as Air America. Most Americans were sheep-dipped, meaning they were hired directly from the U.S. military and paid twice as much. They did not wear U.S. military uniforms or carry an ID, as they supplied, trained, paid, and led various Chinese and Laotian mercenary groups. These CIA personnel openly augmented their funding and personal wealth by transporting opium. See the short video link below. As the destruction of Laos ramped up, the Pentagon allowed American commandos to conduct operations in Laos. They were known as the Special Operations Group, or SOG, which supported the bombing effort with ground reconnaissance, sensor emplacement, and bomb damage assessment missions. They reported that most pilot claims of successful bombing missions were false. Some 330 Americans went missing in Laos, to include downed pilots. Dozens were thought to be POWs, yet only 9 were released in 1975. See the article link below. It was awkward for the U.S. government to demand information about these missing warfighters, since it refused to acknowledge that they were in Laos.
What about American military fighter bombers, planes operating out of Thailand, attacking North Vietnamese positions in northeast Laos? Can you comment on that?
I have no comment on that at all. We are the armed reconnaissance, but that has nothing to do with bombing or anything.
Any comment on the reports of an escalated American military commitment, reports of larger bombers, B-52s operating? Could you comment on any of that, sir?
Well, I just might make a comment. We have no commitment in Laos. Our military assistance and materiel is being supplied pursuant to the request of the Royal Lao government and in consonance with the Geneva Agreements of 1962.
But to any question that would request an itemization of American military involvement, what would be the official American reply here, sir?
Oh, there'd certainly be no comment.
The main justification for destroying Laos was to shut down the Ho Chi Minh Trail, which was said to be the primary supply line to support the war in the South. This wasn't a single trail, but a network of dirt roads and footpaths throughout eastern Laos. No amount of bombing could seal this route. Many supplies were moved by bicycles that could carry up to 400 pounds. Thousands of porters were used to carry backpacks along trails in dense jungles. American bombing missions were based on hunches, so we're lucky to hit anything of military value. Manpower and supplies also flowed directly through what the Americans called the DMZ. This wasn't a fortified defensive line like in World War I or Korea. Most American combat forces were busy pacifying all of southern Vietnam. The Marines assigned to guard the DMZ lacked manpower, so built a series of forts to control their area, but were unable to stop daily infiltrations southward. Vietnam had heavy river and coastal boat traffic to move goods. There was a major effort to patrol this traffic, and enemy supplies were found daily, but most slipped past. Even ships delivered supplies. The American CIA estimated in 1969 that at least 22,000 tons had been delivered by Chinese ships to Cambodian seaports. Cambodian generals collected a 10% share of goods to allow supplies to be offloaded and transported to the region near Vietnam. See the article linked below. The strategy of cutting supply lines from the north was flawed because enemy forces obtained an estimated 80% of what they needed from their area of operations in the south. Vietnamese liberation forces bought goods in the massive black market where food, fuel, ammunition, explosives, and American military equipment could be purchased. Some was donated by local supporters or obtained by taxation at gunpoint. The logic of the massive bombing of Laos was simple. South Vietnam was heavily bombed, but that failed to suppress the rebellion. North Vietnam was heavily bombed, but that had little effect. Someone decided, let's bomb Laos. That failed too, and the Laotian people suffered.
Well, I've talked with hundreds of refugees from towns and villages all over northeastern Laos in the last 6 months. What they talk most about is American bombing, being told by the male soldiers of the Royal Lao government side to leave their villages, and having to do porterage, that is, carrying arms and food for Pathet Lao soldiers. The thing they're most concerned about is the bombing, and particularly American bombing. Until 1967, Lao bombing by T-28s outnumbered was greater than American bombing. But starting in 1968, and particularly in 1969, after President Johnson stopped the bombing in North Vietnam and diverted the jets into Laos, American bombing has been a constant day and night affair for the refugees. They say that the planes came over all the time, shot at everything: people, cows, buffaloes, houses, rice fields, schools. They say that there were ordinary bombs, napalm, phosphorus, and anti-personnel bombs. They all say that they've lived for the last 2 years, mostly underground,